Chatterjee. I am into the industry well around 15 years. I started off with a networking background and slowly moved into software industry and eventually happened into this SAP field. Started with a very small company and then gradually climbing up to where I am currently today. So, as correctly Abhijit said, uh, Basis has a very integral role in any sort of SAP project. If it is, it could be an implementation project or it could be a regular support project. Now, if I come from a very beginning perspective, now what is SAP? It's just a software, we know it, but it comes from an idea that we all learn in basically in management, that is the ERP or the Enterprise Resource Planner. When the industries were growing in, there was a pressing need for managing all their resources, all their amenities, all their facilities in a way where they can track everything on a single window or on a single platform. So these companies were approaching software companies. I am talking about these production companies approaching to these software companies to have a software built for their need, which can cater to all their activities and their resources in a more efficient way. So many companies has come up with their variations. Like Oracle had their Oracle apps. We had JD Edwards earlier. We had Microsoft Navision, etc. So SAP in the year 80s, the early 80s or late 70s probably, they have come with SAP is primarily is a company of Germany based. SAP AG is the company name, and from that they have derived the software name SAP as well. So they have initially come up with a software that is called R3, where R stands for a real time, and 3 is that architecture of 3 layer that they offer to have this software being implemented to any productive company or production company to integrate all their activities in a digital platform in more efficient way. So when we talk about any softwares, first of all, that software has to be in place in a machine in order to operate or used by the end customers. So basis starts from the very scratch of the project. So they basically indulge in uh, designing the architecture of the software, designing or proposing the hardware requirements for the software, then installation of the software, which Avijit mentioned as a greenfield, or maybe upgradation from an old system to SAP, and then keep on the operation or the show running throughout, fixing up all the issues. So basically, uh, a basis person's job is from the installation, which is the very beginning, or rather the architecture design, which is the very beginning of a SAP project, and then managing it throughout its operation. Now, if I come what SAP basis, the basis is a basically an abbreviation, which is business application system integrated solution. So here the persons responsible for uh, basis related task should have a knowledge in terms of system architecture, little bit of hardware and networking, which is essential for that person to work in that software field. So as I have started, initially SAP has started up with this R3 system, which companies were started using. Then SAP as a company started collecting all the feedbacks from these companies as what better they could incorporate into their software. And gradually, as they get all this information in around 2000, in the year 2003 4, in around this period, they came up with an upgraded version with NetWeaver, and they named this new software as ECC. So from R3 they have ran into ECC, which is the current version with lot many features and lot many integrations in it. And as Abhijit says, currently at this present scenario from ECC, we have this S4 HANA technology, which is there, which is the most latest and incorporating all the latest facilities or all the latest amenities these companies or these client customers are requiring in their day-to-day operations, incorporating everything. So currently, in terms of like this slide shows, the role of a basis consultant is basically, if I say from alpine to an elephant in terms of the software life cycle: architecture designing, implementation, monitoring, troubleshooting, keeping the operation running in case of a new software upgrade comes into picture, having it implemented onto the existing landscape, and make the show running. Abhijit, if you can go to the next slide. I think this is what I have already been discussed through. Just one thing, the task of a basis guy is including but not limited to, as I said, architecting the environment. Basically,
No,
architecting of the environment, when we
okay,
mean, we are the kind of the guys who run the show, as though we stay behind the curtain most of the time, but we run the show whenever there is an issue. Like, we come in front as the time of architecture design, installation, upgradation, migration, and in terms of daily operations, when the system is up and running for customers, we are the silent gatekeepers. We are monitoring everything that is happening on the system. We are finding out the small glitches or the issues that could potentially stop the business or the operation, and protecting the system from any harm from outside, and rectifying if any unforeseen error or unforeseen situation comes into picture. Basis come into play a very vital role in rectifying the error to make the operation running for the customers or the clients. So if I come with the transaction, I think it is very early at this point, but still, a transaction, basically, whichever we do on a software is a transaction. Anything that a user performs, a end user performs on SAP system. Sorry, the slide been lost.
sorry, I think someone is interested to join, so I got the ping.
Please, no problem. Just let me know to hang up. I'll just hang up there.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. So anything that a end user does on the system is a transaction. Like, invoice. I'm talking in terms of technicalities. Say, in a departmental store, I am buying something. I give the product to the person in charge of billing. He takes the products. He scans the barcode. It gets feeded into the system, and we give the money or give the credit card to pay the bill, and the bill comes out. So everything that is happening between the customer and the billing person that goes into the system is a transaction. It's recorded into the database through the application SAP, with the help of the POS machine or the presentation layer that is in front. Now we are going deep into the system architecture of basis. I mean the SAP here. I think what we can or just one step back, Abhijit, for the timing. If I say the basic functions of basis module, I think we have gone through this. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Fine. Okay, I think I already have covered this, the standard software orientation or the 3-tier architecture. So basically, at the bottom of any software that serves client or that serves our customers should have a database, because anything that we do on a system, at the end of the day, it is data. It could be a machine information, it could be a product information, it could be a user information, it could be a simple financial information, but to the system or to the digital environment, it is data, and it is being stored to the database system that is underlying of the architecture. So that is the bottom layer. The second layer that comes in is the actual SAP software that runs the show. Basically, it contains the list of executables and the library files that work together in sync in order to process the data from the presentation layer to the database layer and to and fro. because when we are entering something from the presentation layer, it's either gets saved to the database level or either being fetched from the database level for viewing, like reports or any sort of data information that we fetch. So the application lies in between to do this to and fro job. And this architecture is the very core of SAP, starting from R3 till today, as we have using SAP S4 HANA, which is the latest technology, but the basic architecture remains the same. Yeah, we can go ahead, move ahead. Yeah, I think we have covered here. Uh, as I told that anything that we do on the SAP system is a transaction, and each transaction could have multiple steps associated with it, and each of these steps are called in technical terms a dialog step. Basically, whenever we are entering any command or any value or feeding any value into the system, we have to go through multiple screens. It could be any software. It doesn't mean to be a SAP software. It could be any software where we have to go through multiple screens or multiple tabs. So each of these steps are actually called the dialog steps, where we do a dialogue with the digital presentation layer from our end. It's basically a dialogue, two-way. So that is what it is being meant here. And I think presentation layer, application layer, and these things we have already been discussed. As I said, this one again, in the screen, wherever we are putting data or we are inputting data, we are basically going through multiple screens or multiple tabs, and each of these entries that we are putting in, or each of the work that we are putting in, sorry,
Go ahead, Chet.
Yeah, sorry, no problem. So this is called a dialog step here. Okay, so I'm going by the slide itself. The application layer, again I said, the application layer basically communicates with the presentation layer and the database layer. It just contains the list of executables and the library files. When we call the library files, these are basically .dll files which contain certain functionalities that this executable files fetches and does its operation. So anyone from the technical background would easily understand what the .dll files come into picture. Like our Windows operating system also got its own .dll file, and the executables of this Windows OS uses this .dll files in order to perform the activities. Now here one important thing that comes is the message server, which is again the part of the application layer or the application system or the application server, which basically sits in the core of application layer, and this is the part who takes the request from the user as a dialog step from the presentation layer and passes it to the database layer for data saving or data retrieving. And it is a two-way highway. We can consider it as a two-way road where the data flows from either direction in order to have the processing going on. Now, apart from message server for doing certain activities on the database or on the SAP system, we have several components which we call the work processes, which are basically some agents which takes the request from the user and then passes them down to the database, or takes the values from the database and passes on to the user screen. So there are work processes like dialog, update, enqueue, batch, spool. We have dispatcher, gateway, message server we have already discussed. Out of these two, dispatcher is basically a kind of a you can say a spool or sorry, a queue, where every request comes in and then goes out from another direction towards the database or the other way around. So that is what the dispatcher does, is basically takes on all the requests that are flowing in and then passing them towards the database layer or the vice versa. And gateway comes into picture when we have a third party integration or connecting one system to another system. It basically bridges these two systems together. So these are all, again, at the background, these are certain executables that works at the behind of all these processes to for certain work. Abhijit, we can go in. The next one, please. I think again I already have covered it. So whenever you are sitting in front of the, just have the concept of any departmental store like Big Bazaar, Easy Day, anyone like that. I'm taking names here. So when the person at the billing counter, they have a machine which is a POS machine, basically point of sale. So that has a screen. That screen you can refer to this SAP GUI. Though they don't have a SAP GUI screen, they have some sort of a modified screen which actually integrates directly with the SAP application at the back end. So you can see in a big departmental store, there are maybe multiple billing stations, multiple persons are sitting there. Everyone is taking response from the customers and get the things being billed. So every order or every transaction is coming as a funnel towards this dispatcher, which takes all these requests, and then one by one it sends those requests back to the application system level, where the respective work processes takes on the requests, processes them, puts it into the database if it is a saving or write operation, or if it is a read operation, fetches the data from the database and again presents it on the SAP screen or the POS screen for the user to have the display. And this TCP, just go back one thing. Yeah, the TCP IP that has been mentioned here is nothing but the network connection in between, because every server has to have a network incorporated. So this is basically the network layer that we are referring by mentioning TCP IP. Yeah, I think we already have discussed this one. Just one pointer, we have only one dispatcher per SAP application, but we have multiple work processes, and again the number of work processes can be increased or decreased based on the load on the system or as per the requirement by the customer. Again, the dispatcher, it basically balances the workload. Like normally in a system, we have around 20 to 30 dialogue work processes, around 10 to 15 background work processes, around 5 to 6 pool work processes. So if I come to that, again, this is very technical. Unless someone is learning the back end of it, is very difficult to understand. Just to give you an idea, any sort of dialogue transactions mean any sort of real-time activity. You are purchasing a product, you are giving the product to the biller, he is taking it, scanning it, taking the money, giving you the bill. That is one transaction, and this entire transaction is carried out by the dialogue work process. When there is the print coming in, the bill gets printed, the spool work process comes into picture. And say maybe the system loads certain data into the application or into the POS machine. That is where the background work processes come into picture. So every sort of works that comes towards this SAP, dispatcher takes those works and then associate any one of the work processes randomly, whichever it finds free. A free work process is finds and delivers the work that you are giving to the system to that work process to function. So that is what we have presented here. Yeah, this is the border architecture of a work process. If we can just slice down a work process and lay it on a piece of table or on a flat table, this is what we can see. It has a task handler Again, it basically takes all the tasks, puts it in a queue, because our work process at a time needs to handle multiple operation in a running environment. So basically, whenever the tasks are coming in from the dispatcher, it just keeps a track of all those tasks and puts it in a queue and then associate them one by one. Then it has a ABAP P4 processor. Basically, ABAP is the language on which SAP runs, and ABAP language again being developed from C. The underlying architecture of ABAP language is being C. So the ABAP processor basically converts the request from ABAP language to the machine language. The dialogue interpreter, basically, as we go through each of the dialogue steps one after another, the dialogue interpreter interprets each of these steps basically. And obviously a database interface has to be there, because again, any operation that we perform on any system that has a connection with database, either it's a read operation or it's a write operation. So this is the basic architecture of it. Now these are the overall work processes in a broader way. So we already have discussed dialogue. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention, update. Again, when I say about write operation, that means I am putting something onto the database. Either I am inserting one data into the database, or I am updating one data with further information. That is where the update work process come into picture. So any sort of data write operation that has to have, that goes through this update work process. And apart from that, the NQ, which is the basic key work process in any of the system that holds the data integration. Like it could happen, so I am working on a certain object, and that object at the same point is being edited by another person. So it would create a conflict. So this NQ ensures that unless one person completes operation on that particular object, it won't be editable or accessible by another requester. So this is where the prevention comes to maintain data integrity. Again, these are very technical and it requires a background to understand this level, but I'm just giving a gist here. And as I told you, gateway is basically to connect different systems. It could be between two SAP systems or could be a SAP and a non-SAP system. It basically bridges these two systems. Abhijit, we can go next. Okay, the background work processes. This is, again, I told you, normally what happens in any company, we need to see, or the higher management basically deals with the reports or whatever the sales or whatever the profitability that has gone into a day's work or a day's business. That is what interests the higher management, because they don't understand what's being done at the ground level. They just want those figures. So basically, this background work processes takes care of certain jobs that run into this system, creates these reports, or maybe a bulk data upload that happens into the database. Like whenever, again, I'm going back to the example of a departmental store. When a certain rack of items being sold out, again, it has to be refilled for the next day operation. So these, as the tangible items are being placed into the racks, the same item name, number, batch, price, everything has to be put into the system as well for next day's operation, to have those things available for the biller. So these informations are fed into system in a bulk. Maybe in sort of an Excel or something, some upload happens. So to have these longer run operations onto the system, we have these background processes that has a capacity of running longer duration, because dialogue work processes have a very shorter duration of working in dialogue mode.
Yeah. One thing just wanted to
Yeah,
update at
please.
over here. This background work processes we
Mhm.
definitely required, but in SAP comes with a claim that in with S4 HANA, because it is the now
Mhm.
now in memory
In
database, and
memory, yes.
everything is now going in memory. So current days we don't need any background work process until unless it is the automated kind of things, because initially earlier we see from functional point of view, we see there are a lot of batch job running in the background, because the report takes longer time to bring the outcome. So
Yes.
we put that in the background job. Next day, if the stakeholder gets those report and check whether in Excel whether it is correct, wrong, or anything, so to take a analysis of that. But nowadays, due to the in memory concept and in memory database, SAP claim there is no, until unless it is not been scheduled. Suppose uh, there no need to create the background job in the new era. And the other thing is, earlier suppose a background job takes much longer time, means 30 minutes, 25 minutes. Now those background job are currently
Also
it's
being
taking
reduced.
reduced very, and the reduction is 80 to 90%. It is saying that
Yes.
for example, from my side I can say that in SAP sales and return process, we have a cancellation request, and it requires rebate running. So at the month end we run the report, and we generally take that report to run and do the calculation, all these things. It takes around 2 to 3 hours. Nowadays this report are taking less than 3 minutes or 2 minutes. So so nowadays business more or less doing the background work process, if due to the system load balancing and other things. But for business point of view, background work process is very minimum current days. Yeah,
Thank you, Abhijit, for putting it forward. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Yes.
Again, the spool work process basically takes care of all the print requests that we give. Like whenever you purchase something, you get a bill, printed invoice. Now, though nowadays we are having this e-bills which are being SMSed or being mailed to your system, but even if that, for that PDF bills to get generated, we need to have a spool work process that creates a PDF kind of a bill and sends it over a mail to your mobile number which has been given. So it basically takes care of all the print related activities that are associated.
Yeah, just to give example over here, nowadays if you go into pantaloons or any big
Yes, they give
mall,
e-bill.
they give nowadays e-bill due to but the behind that, it is I hope the logic behind that one is cutting cost, because paper
Obviously,
cost and
that is the first one.
correct. So the longer term, we are going digital way. We are just cut down our unnecessary cost belonging, and those things is doing by the spool request. Means you send those bill to our mobile, and we
Yes.
check this thing. So, yeah, sorry, over to you.
Yeah, please. So the NQ work process, as being told, it basically keeps track of all the actions that are going on onto the system in real time and make sure in any point of time my data is consistent and there is no though no ambiguity in terms of data. Like again I said, if I am working on certain object, at that same point of time another user or another request cannot do any editing or modifying on that particular object, which can lead to inconsistency. So it will lock that object for that period and it will release it once only I am done my job, and either I am saving that particular job or I am quitting out that transaction. So it would basically keep tracks of all our transactions and keep the database in consistent state all the time. And just one thing, if we have a clustered environment, we have some concept called NQ replication, which is again on a higher node, that again goes between two nodes to balance it out. I think we have discussed with this one, this update work process, which is again, if we do for any sort of updations, there are two states of any updates. There is one V2, one is one V1. So the time critical process, which are very essential, are called V1 updates, and which are less critical or having less priority are put to as a V2 updates. So any sort of transactions basically have these two updates that are there. So if a update work process is in V2 state, we can still go out of it. But if it is in a V1 state, until and unless that update is being completed, we cannot go out. And the NQ work process, this is where holds the object till a V1 update is being completed, unless there could be an inconsistency. So NQ work process monitors this V1 and V2 updates for any activity and checks if a V1 update is being completed or not. Then only it releases the log. I think message server is basically the path where all the requests from multiple points comes in, and then it routes them back to the database. So and through the help of different work processes, it gets the job being done.
So can I ask one question, Abhishek?
Please.
Yeah.
Please
Thank
do.
You. So if I wanted to send my report to some stakeholder or some CXO level, so message server comes in because it is a extracting those report from SAP system and send it to the mail server, correct? The mail is that. So there is an integration between SAP server and SAP application layer as well as mail server, so that correct stakeholder get correct report and all these things, correct? My understanding.
It basically routes the request to the mail server through the SOST, and if the recipients are being mapped in, it basically tries to route that particular request or the PDF form of the request or whatever it is trying to send it through that mail recipient that has been mapped into the system.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So again, gateway server is basically for communication, and it communicates between two SAP. It could be two SAP server. It could be a SAP or a non-SAP. Either way, it basically bridges two systems for a communication exchange. So whenever we talk about RFCs, basically this gateway is being called in background. This is already I have spoken that the number of work processes can be increased or decreased based on our need. But this is the bare minimum thing that we should have at least two dialog work processes in order to run. We need to have one V1 and V2 update processes, and we have to have some number of spool work processes, which again can be changed as we need. We can change it, but however, it is given as a default. And there are basically parameters to change these values. I think this one we already done or not yet?
Yeah, I think it is done.
Okay, so this is where we just call that dialog step transactions. So whenever we give an input to the presentation layer, it goes back to the dispatcher. The dispatcher calls the respective work process, assigns the job to the work process. The work process takes the job and connects to message server, which basically routes the request to the database. In database, it either a read or a write. Then the resultant is again fetched back to the message server. Through message server, it goes to the work process, dispatcher, and again back to the screen of the requester or the presentation layer. So message server primarily deals with connecting the database. And we have always one message server per instance. There could not be two message servers. Okay, these are some of the interface methodology that we use between multiple system. It could be APIs, OLE, ALE, EDI, IDOC, RFC. I already discussed. There are Mail, MAPI, SMTP, X400, QAPI, CPIC. CPIC basically the communication, the basic communication that SAP systems use in between themselves. And business API is being called when we call third-party systems, which are probably non-SAP systems. This OLE, ALE, EDI also come into that. IDOC also same. RFCs also we can connect SAP as well as non-SAP systems or applications that are running on third-party systems. So these are basically methods that SAP uses in terms to connect third-party systems with the help of gateway again.
Yeah, just to add with you, so nowadays we saw the cloud is coming, and generally in the large landscape in the corporate world, there are multiple number of system. It is not only SAP sits in the heart of the things, heart of the game. It can be some other Oracle, it can be Workday, it can be other.
Nowadays, BODA, SAS, these things are
Correct.
also coming in.
Also coming Tableau, all this means all the configuration later. So if you look into the any big corporation, there is not only SAP, it is in number of system, and I have came across same. Same company, but they run two separate boxes, and due to their business approval and other things, they have implemented same business process but in different server. So they need to communicate each other when they are taking out the reports and when they are taking out any business processes confirmation. So that time we need to have those kind of interfaces, and nowadays we have CPI or Ariba Gateway. All this come into the picture. Cloud platform integration and business API is very high level. Means we can put the rules to communicate on those things. And if you look into the right hand side, it is a high level to low level. So so you can see that IDOC, RFC is little, and all the nowadays API is coming a big shot. So API we connect different system with a business API with putting some rule also. Sorry. Between
No, it's okay. It's good that you have incorporated. Thank you, Abhijit. Okay, ALE is basically the full form. I just could not. Application layer. I just forgot the names. Basically, ALE. It basically connects two business components. Like we have two applications. One could be SAP, one could be another system. It basically connects these two systems via this ALE interface. This is basically a framework that connects two systems or two business components to communicate with each other and exchange data in between. I think this is BAPI is again a much more similar sort of communication method, but in a different way, different than ALE. These are again this BAPI, ALE, RFC. These are basically certain communication methods, but these are having their own advantages and disadvantages. And in current scenario, as we progress with our digital enhancement, we are going with higher versions. Like that the previous slide shows high to low.
So I think this also we have covered.
Okay, this is again we have though discussed. It is just to give you an excerpt of the basic functions of a BASIS consultant. This is the hardware and database administration. Though in current scenario, the hardware vendor or the database provider or database consultants are in a different way or being segregated by companies for various reasons. But it is always good to know the hardware background and the database architecture to a certain level that helps a BASIS consultant to identify the issues and rectify the problems Like I myself have worked extensively on the Oracle, so I might can run couple of Oracle queries if I need to find where the exact issue is in SAP level. Then user and security administration, that is a very integral part of any system, because when you create a system you need to have a user or the persons who would be logging into the system and do the business. There could be an end user, there could be a business user, there could be the even the basis guys or the functional consultants, they are also users to the system. So having those user IDs being built up, giving the proper roles and restrictions, like functional people have a certain level of access or certain level of requirements to work on the system than a sales guy or maybe a production guy. So segregating these duties also again come into picture through the use of GRC. So these are very much integral part of any of a basis consultant. Client maintenance, here the client basically is a logical separation in terms of the database, where all the activities that happens and kept in a kind of a shell. So client can be conceptualized as a shell where every activities of that particular customer happens and keeps in that shell. Correction and transport. So basically whenever we implement SAP, we normally do not have one box. We basically have three, in some cases two, or in today's cases we have four boxes, where we have the first box, which is our development. So any sort of new changes or any sort of augmentation or any sort of development are being done, then certain tests are being performed on that, then it is being moved forward for a next box, which is called a quality assurance system, where you couple of users, those going to get execute those things in a operation environment, are come into picture to test those scenarios, give feedbacks. If again changes required, so it again goes back to development, changes are happens, comes to quality for a rerun, and once the changes are being satisfied by the customer, then it is being moved to the next environment or the operational environment called the production. So taking these changes or this developments from one box to another box, we use a methodology called transport management system or the CTS. So basis functionality also to establish this transport route or the transport environment, and then help in moving those transport from one box to the another and fixing up issues if at all there is any sort of issues in those transports. However, nowadays we use a lot of automation processes, like we use Charm, or we have certain scheduled jobs that run on the systems to have this transport being done automatically instead of doing it manually. Now, if we call data dictionary, these are basically those DLLs that we are talking about, that contains the functionalities or the metadata in terms of the SAP system given by SAP, and can be used to modify them as per company's needs. These are basically client independent objects. This could be tables, views, report, functions, these sort of things. Okay, online service system. So SAP, like for any other software, has their own marketplace or a service desk, which is accessible by connecting to their portal. They have given it an option to connect the SAP system directly to this service marketplace through a system called OSS service system. So this is basically a kind of an RFC integration. Nowadays it's called a backbone integration along with the SAP system, where we can connect to the SAP system. We can raise our issues which are very pressing and unsolvable for certain reason and requires SAP's intervention. So SAP can take back the access of our systems, look into the issue, fix the same, give us the solution in terms of an upgrade, patch, or an interim note. So here also basis functions the RFC establishments, helping the SAP guy to log into the system and check our issues. And last but not the least, performance monitoring and tuning, which is a kind of ongoing activity that goes on every single day to make the system run smoothly as we load our system with data every single day. So initially, when we build the system, it may have 10 GB of data, but over a use by a company over years, the data can go exponentially. And based on that, we need to tune up our system to match the the data load or the load on the system. So this is a part of basis to constantly monitoring the system and tuning up the system to match this need and for a smooth operation.
Okay, before going to next slide, I just wanted to ask, you have mentioned that for correction and transport system, we have a charm. Charm is a separate tool or
it's a separate tool. It's run by solution manager that connects those satellite systems, and then it basically on those satellite system it manages the transports which are being connected to Solman.
Okay, so
that has to be configured. That has to be configured in a way.
Okay, so it is a product given by a SAP, or it is
no,
a separate
it's basically a functionality that is there in Solution Manager, starting from Solution Manager 7.0, I believe it is there, but it needs to be configured in a way where we can map all our SAP systems as a satellite system and given a transport path in a certain way where transports can be generated at the satellite system, and then TOC are being taken into the next system onwards with the help of this charm.
Okay. And another
because basically charm is change and release management.
Okay.
Is the full form of it.
If I understand, means I have worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and pharma have a very good compliance. They have to maintain a very good compliance, and they so this particular transport system is very robust. Means when you transport, what are the approvals you need to do? What are the
that also you can give to charm, because whenever you require a approval, the charm basically sends out the request as a mail or as a or you can log into a particular user screen. You get a kind of a message that you need to approve this, so you can view the transport, what are the object it contains. Based on that, you can either approve or reject. Based on that, it can then move to the next system onward. So it depends on how you configure it. Like for our customer, it is just been configured in our way, whatever the transport that are being released, automatically it gets moved to quality, and then it stops there. It don't go beyond quality, because from regression onwards we have to do it manually. But if it is being released from development, charm will notice it and release it and import it to quality. This is how it has been designed here, but there are multiple layers that can be added in.
Correct. And other question is security administrator. So we have a separate security guy.
Basically we do have a separate team. Those takes care of this security and administration roles, because if we have understood correctly, there is a segregation of duty. So basically a basis guy is a system admin. He has got a broader access, and again giving him an access of security and role related activities that makes the system somewhat vulnerable in terms of audit perspective. So it is not advised to give the all access to a one person. So to keep this operation separated, or segregation of duties, SOD concept that is there from GRC, these two things are kept separate. But again, in smaller companies or smaller projects, a basis guy has to look into user and security administration as well.
And skill perspective, if I understand, the skill perspective means basis guy have that skill to map role and assign those roles.
I have even worked in GRC as well. I know GRC pretty well.
Okay.
Even being touchwood, in my last project, I was a total GRC security guy. I handled an end-to-end security GRC kind of an work. It's not an implementation in terms of basis. It's a purely functional work that I did. It's just because I had to learn in ITC. I think Samiran knows that. In a course of time, I had to learn GRC because there is no one to support there. So I had to learn GRC. I have learned that, and I have quite a bit of exposure in GRC and security and administration.
Okay, so for understanding of everyone, so basic skill perspective. Suppose I am saying
It's
that
it's not you should have, but it's nice to have.
okay, you nice to have.
It would add an advantage to you again. So because any knowledge is something that gives you an extra edge from the other person. Even I say I can run LSMW without the help of an ABAPer. It gives me an extra edge.
No, actually, if you say that, suppose I am from the supply chain background, and somebody is from the finance background. I generally don't try to expose in the finance. Means
exactly.
So there is some demarcation or something.
Yes, definitely, because there's a segregation of duty. But if you know that part, that gives you an extra edge to identify the issue. Like a user is claiming he is unable to get certain value onto the system which he desires, or his colleague is getting that, but he is not. So I could at least get to the bottom of it. Could it be an authorization issue, or could it be a system issue? So it just gives me an extra edge to that, having that knowledge.
Thank you.
It's just that.
So moving forward.
Sure, Abhijit. Again, as we said that whenever we build a software, it is just a nascent system where clients have started working on, but we need to have the insight to think that this client going to use this system for next 5 years or 10 years. So when we propose a hardware architecture or a software architecture, that has to be very much robust, scalable, and elastic. It should be able to handle the load of the system 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line. Also, we have to think in case in between, if I need to upgrade the hardware or the software, should I have the place there? Like if I am having 2 slots or maybe 1 slot of RAM insertion in my laptop, then going forward, or maybe 1 hardware port, 1 hard disk port, going forward, if I need a bigger hardware, can I add an extra hard disk over there? Do I have that, the capacity? So thinking of this is very essential whenever we are designing, where we are architecting. Same goes with database. The database I must choose should be very robust, should incorporate all the RDBMS feature, and that should sustain the data load that may build upon the system over a year. Also, we have to think there could be disaster, there could be a tsunami, there could be an earthquake, there could be human error where the database entirely crashes, there could be a power failure that just ruins the entire database. What is my fallback scenario? Because the system has to run at a continuous process. So thinking of all these things comes to a basis perspective as well. So this is basically how you plan to design, how you plan to scale your system for sustainability. I think this one we have already discussed. Just to give you an idea, user administration, basically creating of users, giving them certain roles through which they can run the T codes, then modify the user roles, modify the user basic informations, their default values, locking and unlocking users in terms of our operation. Develop authorization is basically nothing but giving developer access to an ABAPer who can develop the SAP provided data dictionary objects that SAP has given in the box, and it requires a special sort of authorization and special sort of key that we generate from SAP marketplace and supply to the ABAP developer in order for him to do the modifications.
Just to curiosity purpose, nowadays we are moving to cloud, and I know many clients choose for on-premise, many clients choose for cloud version. So in the cloud version, all this activity, creating user and a this take care by SAP itself, or there is somebody who needs to be
It
company
could be
side?
either way. It could be either way. It depends on the kind of agreement that you are having. It could be done by the SAP person, that you give the list of accesses that you require and the list of user IDs. So they create it and give you the credentials. You can use it. If anyone left the organization, it has been dropped out. If anyone joins in, you just give them the again the username. Certain form you need to maybe fill it up. You need to give a reference ID that this person from this department has been left. So Mr. X is being left and Y has come into the same place. So similar sort of role is being given to that. Or it could be managed by some associate at your end as well. It depends. Technically, it just depends how you contract.
Okay, it depends on the RASI between you, company, and
Yes. Because you can take the application as a service or a platform as a service or a solution as a service depending on that contract. It's purely the agreement.
Correct. Thanks.
No problem. Again, if I mean a client, it is not client doesn't mean here the customer. The client mean is basically a logical separation in the database where every action being takes place, and is basically a cocoon or a kind of a shell where every operation takes place inside, and it is very of its own. It's an individual entity. So one system can have multiple clients. You can say a system is a kind of a entire floor where the clients are separate wall partitions. Every room is a client. Every items in that room belongs to that particular room only, though they belong to the entire floor. So it basically, if you conceptualize in this way, it is very much understandable. And now copy and refresh client is basically the same thing. I am taking all the belonging of my one room to the other room. It is basically client refresh. And if I replicate each item of my one room to the other room, exactly the same position and same way, it is basically a client copy. So there is a difference between it.
Correct. And for those who are new in the SAP industry, I just wanted to highlight, when we log into SAP any server, you first give a client, okay,
Yes.
and then you give your username and password. So in the same box, you can have multiple client, and if you suppose 100, you have a client 100, and 100 has lesser data. So database can be different, or there can be some golden client, some testing client, some only above client. All these things has been structured as per the company structure, company matrix
Requirement. Yes.
Correct.
But just to remember, in production environment, we have always one client. Productive
Correct.
client should be always one. There could not be a multiple client.
Correct.
Because they are where all the operations happens. So where there is a client being set up, the client could be set up, it could be refreshed, it could be copied from another client, it could be deleted, it could be modified as per our need. So this is also one of the activity that a basis person performs. So Abhijit, we can go next. This is, I think, again, we have already been discussed, like whatever changes we made in a development that goes to the quality assurance system, and then lastly to production. So here basically the path or the cars you can see, these are basically movement of the transport through the route. So here the route between development and quality called the consolidated route, and the quality to production is the delivery route. Delivery means the final delivery of the product. And consolidation means we are still consolidating, we are validating, we are changing. This is between development and quality. I think this is, again, we have been discussed. Or should you want me to go through again?
No, I think we already discussed for that.
Okay. I think this one also we have discussed. Just couple of things. Just go back, Abhijit, once back. Couple of things here. When we talk about performance monitor and tuning, in terms of SAP applications, we have profile parameters that basically parameters runs our application system. Parameters are nothing but certain objects that have certain values which can be decreased, can be increased, and based on that the performance can be tuned up or tuned down of the application. But when we call about database performance tuning, here your database knowledge come into picture. The more you know about the database, you can tune up the database that well.
Yeah, I just for due to the time constraint, I just wanted to check how many. Okay, I think we are the good shape. We have very
Can we
little
go on
time.
the HANA section, please? Because I think that one is important and people wanting to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Like the SAP S4 HANA architecture, I think, Abhijit, this is more of a functional, because from basis point of view, it is just another system. Like I said, as of now, we are using the ECC or the enterprise core component. Now, SAP has come up with this new software, which is called SAP S4 HANA, which can be used over cloud environment or on-prem. And this has got many new feature associated, many new integration associated with it, and it has been catered towards certain functionality. Like S4 HANA Simple Finance mostly deal with the finance perspective, Simple Logistics deal with the logistics perspective. I think you have separate Simple Sales and Warehouse Management as well. That basically caters to particular that module itself. If I'm not wrong, correct me, Abhijit, if I'm wrong.
Correct. I just wanted to highlight over here. Nowadays, if we understand, so there are different. It's a cloud fast, depending upon the company strategy, long-term strategy. Company choose. SAP has given offering cloud or on-premise or multi-tenant cloud or single-tenant cloud. So depending upon the size, depending upon the flexibility, company is giving. SAP has giving a lot of flexibility over here. All those here in this slide particularly, it shows all the cloud component. If you see that success factor, Ariba, Fieldglass, Concur, integrated, these only are cloud component. These are not having on-premise version, because this kind of product is very niche product, and you can pick and choose what functionality you required, what not. So if I understand the SAP strategy, keep your core clean, take the on-premise version for your core functionalities, core business process, do changes over there, but all the functionality which is vanilla kind of things like SAP Ariba, your procurement system, your success HR system, there are less number of business process for depending upon the company. So those things you can move to cloud. So these SAP are not using any kind of on-premise version. And SAP has given up for all the interface. SAP has come out the SAP Cloud Platform, which is shown in the lower section, SDK. With this CPI, we call this CPI, SAP CPI. All this can be integrated with your on-premise version, which is a core, clean, intelligent core, HR, all this sales system. So the main takeout of this particular slide: keep your core clean, stick to standard, and all your very customized things you can move in your or in premise, and you can go sidecar basis also if you want to do that. And SAP also provides some vanilla component, which is a cloud component.
Yeah, you can choose in between, like what are the components that we require and what you don't require. You don't heavy your system, you don't cloud your system with those applications without your need. It's basically need basis.
Correct. And
Thank you, Abhijit.
Just wanted to add. So if we go by the L3 process, generally we go with the L3 process. Now L3 process, company, we give the list of L3 process. Company pick and choose. Okay, this L3 process we adopt. The L3 process is not there, so we don't adopt. So this kind of things are accelerating the timeline to implement those things, and it is vanilla. Means it is kind of okay. We have a shorter timeline for the implementation, shorter timeline for the whole TCO. total cost of ownership of this particular product.
Exactly. I am paying for only which I am using, which I am not taking it.
Correct. And don't make your system very much complex.
Exactly.
And pay as you go means, suppose your company has now create complexity, your revenue generate. Now you go and pay a little bit more extra feature and use it, kind of things.
Kind of value added service that we use on mobiles, maybe. You can compare in that way.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhijit, for this. Thank you.
So moving to Oswego part,
Yeah, Abhijit, you can take over now. I believe it will be on your turn. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Sorry, I took a bit longer time.
No issue. I think that was insightful. Before going into that section, I would take a pause over here. If anybody has any question, so that we can address those things. Let me check the chat
Sure.
window. If anybody has any question. Yeah, anyone has any question, we can address those things. Okay, let me go to the Oswego part. First, before going to that, okay, just from Oswego Learning Advantage point of view, we are providing some counseling. We are providing high quality training material. So our course material and everything is in line with SAP certification. So if anyone is looking for certification, we also help them to align with those knowledge and help them out, and also we provide the career counseling. So somebody who is new in this world, new in the SAP, because SAP is a very vast world, so depending upon your earlier engagement, depending upon your earlier knowledge you have gained in the market, so that also add and wanted to move in the value chain, so that also we think through on those particular area and talk to the expertise and guided the person to what is the best suited area he can go for. And once the course is finished and we have couple of grooming session, we also go for a CV preparation, so that the particular person can have a marketable things, and we also provide the lifelong association with the knowledge group. And on this regard, we are also providing each week as a knowledge sharing, so that we generate the knowledge, we interact with the people, what is they're facing challenges, pain point, and it is not you are alone, we all are having running on the same boat, and experienced teacher will also encounter even if after 15 years, 20 years in our early career, we still face challenges, we feel still, because SAP is running coming with a new features, new challenges, new business module. So those you are not alone in the world, and definitely you take help of Google, as well as we also extended our help to those challenges. So, and we provide those environment so that you can take practice and makes your hands dirty for that. And we also provide project work, which is once you finish your courses, we also get some project work, so that you can have a exposure in the real life scenarios. So having said that, there are a couple material courses we also have from SAP side. and these are, I already discussed, that professional grooming, resume preparation, and mock interview we particularly provide. And these are couple of logos which is in our organization tie up with, and the ones they are getting some requirement, we generally give the best suited candidate for that. And we also have some professional network within our side, and those we to share our knowledge. It is not that you only because we know that there are professionals from functional side, technical side, basis side, network side. So it is not that you can only hand it over your part. You need to gradually, when we got experience, you need to have some other module, as Mr. Chatterjee says, that you need to have some other module exposure also in your journey in SAP world. So we also help for those things. And this is in the end of this webinar. If you have any question, any help, anything, you can shout out in this webinar. So we'll try to address those questions, be capturing those questions, and as well as we also publish this recorded version, so that in the future also you can take a reference, as well as if any question, we try to address those things. With that, I'll end this over here. Anyone has any question, please feel free to ask. Shomiran, help me out if there is any question for me or Mr. Chatterjee, so we can address. Otherwise, we can close the call. I think we have taken much time for this. I'm stop sharing my screen so that